Thank you. Well, thank you. All right, guys. Welcome everyone to this meeting of the council. This meeting will be recorded and subject to a recording being of suitable quality will be made available on the council's YouTube channel via a link on the council's website. Councillors, staff and members of the public, if you have your cell phones on, please switch them off or on the side of the phone. Yes. Right. Health and safety. So the emergency exits for the supper room at the front and the rear of the building. And if we need to evacuate the building, please use one of these exits. Let's head outside by the playground and remain at the assembly area until the building has been confirmed to clear. Now for the affirmation. Councillor Plummer, will you read the affirmation?
Certainly. We pledge that we will faithfully and impartially use our skill, wisdom and judgment throughout discussions and deliberations ahead of us today in order to make responsible and appropriate decisions for the benefit of the South Wairarapa district at large. We commit individually and as a council to the principles of integrity and respect and to upholding the vision and values we've adopted in our long-term plan strategic document in order to energise, unify and enrich our district.
Thank you, Councillor Plummer. For the benefit of the recording, I was going to mention Councillor Fox is joining this council meeting by Zoom. Apologies. We have an apology from Councillor Vickery. He must be away due to sickness in the family. Are there any other apologies? No. Councillor West, will you move to accept the apologies?
I move to accept the apologies.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Hay. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, the motion is carried. Are there any conflicts of interest? Any acknowledgements and tributes?
I'd just like to acknowledge the death of Graham Todd, who passed away about 10 days ago, and a very well loved and respected member in our community, and obviously had many years with the military, serving both in New Zealand and internationally. So I'd just like to acknowledge his funeral was last Saturday.
Councillor Hay. Any other acknowledgements?
Did you acknowledge Bob Peck?
Yes.
Last time, didn't you?
I think I acknowledged that he was ill,
Yes.
but I didn't acknowledge that he has since passed away. Yeah, and on that, I attended his remembrance service at Shubert Mines. It was very well attended. Certainly acknowledge past Bob Peck. Councillor, and then from here.
Yep.
Any other acknowledgements and tributes? Moving on, we have no public participation. That hasn't changed. Cool. Community boards, no chairs here. So no reports. Do we have any reports to table? No. We have no extraordinary business. Or do we have extraordinary business? Any councillors want to raise anything? Councillor.
If I may. Through you, Mr. Chief, I'd like to just raise the query which has been raised at a number of meetings in Featherston regarding the engagement of the public for the wastewater treatment. Now, it came through in one of the declarations there from Water that the application to withdraw the 2017 application had not been acted. This raised concern, particularly when we talking to the other members of the community who were under the impression it had been withdrawn. We had a lot of publicity about it, and I just want to make the point that in Featherston, this is a very important issue. Our major concern is water, and if we are behind the 8 ball, I'd really like to know what was going on. I just direct that to an officer to yourself.
Mr. Wilson, would you like to address that now or further in the meeting?
I don't think it's an agenda item, so we should address it now.
Yeah, so a letter has been drafted to Craig Wellington withdrawn that consent line, so it has caught up with the statements that have been made, but yeah, the appropriate consent has not been, application has been withdrawn.
My question is, why has it taken 7 months?
I can't answer that, but I can come back to you once I've had a chance to speak to Water.
Because I really want to direct it. Is it that we dropped the ball, or is Wellington Water dropped the ball on our behalf? And that's my concern. And that's the concern of the population is say, well, hang on, this has been going on since 2017. Where are we actually up to? Are we seriously doing this, or are we actually got on board? I'm not targeting. I just want to answer.
Your point is taken. This council made a resolution for them to be withdrawn. So if council officers could come back to councillors, and we'll report that at the next meeting as well, regarding the circumstances on why it's taken 7 months.
So we can, there's a report update coming to the assistance services, so we can report that.
And then Wellington Water be at that meeting. Yes. This is the last.
Yes.
This is the last year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eames. Minutes for confirmation. We've been serving the minutes from the 22nd of July. Look at those on Stella. Do we have a mover that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 22nd of July 2020 are a true and accurate record? Thank you, Councillor Colenso. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Gibson.
You want to wave a bit louder, Rebecca?
Actually, I don't know that I'm allowed to vote now, am I, through Zoom?
Yes, you are allowed to vote.
Oh, I am still allowed to. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, any discussion on any questions on those meeting minutes? So, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Now, we also have to consider the 2nd of September. So, do we have a mover that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 2nd of September 2020 are a true and accurate record? Councillor Eames, seconded. Thank you very much, Councillor Maynard. All those, do we want to, any discussion on this?
Just a point that Councillor Vickery acknowledged the passing of Bob Petman at that meeting on the 2nd of September.
Oh, double whammy.
Double whammy.
Yeah. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Now, recommendations from the community committees and community boards. So this is item B1. Do we have a mover to receive the minutes of the council committees and community boards report? Councillor Plymouth, seconded. Thank you very much.
Just
Councillor West.
the query, where is the Martinborough Community Board minutes?
The chair hadn't approved them, so they weren't ready to come to this meeting.
Oh, so that's why we haven't got a hard copy or anything. Okay.
Cool. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, the motion is carried. So, councillors, are there any comments or anything you want to bring to the council's attention from any of the minutes that have been posted? Then moving on, B2, report from the Assets and Services Committee. So there will report B2.
I'll move.
We'll move that. Thank you very much, Jippy. Second, Councillor Colenso. I'll get you next time, Brenda. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, the motion is carried. Councillor Gibson, would you like to speak to this recommendation?
Yeah, I was actually hoping that Councillor Fox could talk to this because you're on the water race committee.
I can talk to it. If people have read the report, I'm happy to address any questions and people have got specific ones.
I guess the issue here is about the survey. Oh, yeah, the survey, and we do have to go with it. We won't know the direction of the what the users, where they want us to go without we do this.
Councillor Gibson, that's a further report. So the one.
We're doing the
Fence one.
We're doing the fence one. Well, I mean, that's a given. Yes. Come with the wrong track. Yeah, I think that's a given. I mean, we need fire and emergency to be able to do the job, and I think if anyone has any questions on it, give us a speak now or forever.
It's a retrospective one anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is a retrospective
Yes.
approval.
Yeah. So So,
I think the moving the race slightly has allowed them to build on that piece of land that has been vacant for so long now while they've sorted this all out. And I think that's going to be a huge asset to Greytown once that whole complex for the fire service and emergency are going to be completed. I think it's amazing and well worth getting done.
The good thing about this is it's going through the water race committee so that we have a record of any alterations or changes to the water race. So this is a good process to go through.
Bayan, if I may make a comment here. The majority of the approvals for water race realignments have been of a historical nature, so they hadn't previously been brought to the attention of assets and services, or indeed of council. They had just happened. So there's a process that's been set in place to retrospectively approve any realignments, but now moving forward that proposals for realignment will come to that water race subcommittee for approval before they take place.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Right, so do we have a mover for the recommendations shown as one in the second box to endorse the Fire and Emergency New Zealand application for the Mora water race realignment? Moved Councillor Bledsoe, seconded Councillor Fox. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against, the motion is carried. So now we get to what Jeppy's been. So straight now the decision reports of the Chief Executive and staff. So we have C1, which is the Innovating Streets for People project report. Do we have a mover to receive this report? Councillor Colento, seconded Councillor Maynard. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, the motion is carried. Mr. Wilson or Mr. Stitt, do you want to give us a brief outline of what you are asking from us today?
So just by way of background, the report sets out pretty clearly what the Innovating Streets project is and what it's trying to achieve. Just to provide context, when we applied for this, we were also mindful that for Greytown and Featherstone, we would be getting works delivered through the Safer Networks program. So there's a program that NZTA are doing through State Highway 2, basically the bottom of the Rimatakas all the way through to Masterton. And that includes a number of safety improvements inside the main street area. So pedestrianisation, all those types of things. So we're conscious that there was work that was going to be part of a wider context for Greytown and Featherstone, but of course nothing was contemplated for Martinborough. And at the same time, you'll recall earlier we had a submission from the Martinborough Business Association to the Community Board requesting essentially the request of the Community Board was to investigate a shared space option at in the block, the last block before the end of State Highway 53, so the block with White Bank and things would. And so, by coincidence, NZTA launched this program, which is Innovating Streets, which is to pilot and trial different types of safety interventions and interventions before you lock in any form of permanent option. So we made an application to the program, and it has been successful. So we're 179,000. That includes the cost of a project manager. One of the delays has been actually trying to find a suitable project manager to actually implement this. It's taking a number of, I think, months to actually find a suitable person who can actually help us with this. We did approach a few people locally who hopefully, unfortunately, they were unable to do it. So the basic idea in this is to trial this wonderful term, tactical urbanism, because it won't be a thing. So it's trying different types of arrangements that are not hardwired in. So that using chicanes, using soft street design, so to give it a sense, imagine if outside the Martinborough Hotel, at certain periods of time, you took out those car parks and used them to restrict the street but allow more safer pedestrianisation and cycling through the town. So instead of people actually literally getting on their bikes and disappearing out that way, to encourage people to use this town centre. So it's a way of really piloting different kinds of techniques to see what would really help the business community, would help, but also at the same time make sure that people who are walking and cycling are doing so safely, because the current arrangement, because the streets are so congested, people often have to step off the street to actually, when there's a lot of peak populace and those types of things. So in short, we've got some funding to pilot and try different types of design. It, of course, would be a very public process using members of the community and engagement with the community to come up with options and solutions to trial. So it's nothing permanent, it's as a pilot with different types of interventions to actually see what we can do to make the pedestrian and the cycling conflict with at times of high congestion, your Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, that enable the businesses to be successful as well as people to be safe.
Just taking into consideration, if we are asking for more bikes to be more to use the town more freely, then the bikes are going to need somewhere to park. So the last thing I suppose we want to avoid is just bikes being dumped on the ground and getting in people's feet.
Exactly, that's part of the whole consideration. Yeah.
For you, Mr. Mayor, Harry, have you thought of, for a project manager, have you thought of going to Victoria University and because a lot of them do that sort of thing, and as part of their PhD or part of their thing, they would maybe like to project manage this that gives them something on their CV for doing it. They're innovative because they're younger and the experience might be well worthwhile.
Messy as well.
That's a great idea, Pam.
I've heard, I've been up when they've been doing their dissertations and things like that. And some of them are really good.
Yeah. And I would also like to reinforce that we had a public submission from Eva Henry, and it's, to make this very clear that Eva would be consulted as part of this. So it's very much the public buying into what might come out, and we don't know or want to preempt what that might look like. That's the whole purpose of
Public and businesses.
Absolutely.
They need to be.
So just to add to that, we do have a couple of proposals for the project management and the engagement resources that we're going to be reviewing, but some we can do to engage other people as well. And just to reinforce that it is about that early engagement piece. There's no preset ideas or anything being fixed. It's around consultation.
But I do encourage you to look online at where this has been implemented previously in Nelson, in Wellington, in Dunedin. This is not a new concept, and some have been successful and some have not been successful. But that's the whole point of the trial. Yeah.
So just through you, Worship, if let's say we landed on a particular design that everybody was happy with, so thinking forward, the funding then would come down to us?
Absolutely, yeah.
It would be another contribution. I mean,
part of this is that whatever we come up with at the end, we need to be able to implement. Right, so this is trialling. Because often people just go to a solution without actually trialling all the different, and believe me, it's like water. If you dam something somewhere, it'll flow out somewhere else. Yeah. So so this is a fantastic opportunity to try, soft or you hardwire in, raise pedestrianised crossings or whatever it may be, bollards, extended footpath. It's a way of trying to see what the flow implications of that are.
and so just looking at the time frame, do you think you'll be able to achieve the time frames that they've set out?
So the timeframes will have to change. There was delays in terms of approving the funding applications within NZTA. And of course, we have issues securing our resources as well. So we need to reset some of the timelines that are in that original application. We're certainly confident we'll be able to achieve the timeline of having something in place by June 2021.
So how does that impact, say, financially? Is it something we have to take into account for the LTP?
So part of the funding application is also to purchase, or there's an allocation in it to purchase some hardware for trialling. So that hardware would still be councils and still be used for that purpose. And any cost, if it is a successful trial and we want to proceed with that, would be more around maintenance rather than actually purchasing hardware.
Right, thanks.
Would I be right to say that after the trial and assuming that things were good, you'd then incorporate this into the spatial plan for the town district, which is something that we would then work to over a period of 10, 20 years or whatever?
I'm not sure if it's at the plan, because it's quite micro. I'm not sure this is a spatial plan kind of issue. It really is, it is an urban design, street layout, so it's something you would put into your transport, walking, cycling, and just put into your transport budget essentially.
Yeah, you would.
To implement, that's the point.
I think it's marvellous doing this while we're going through the LTP spatial plan process, because we're all awash with the whole concept of what examining the way our towns should look. So it's good timing for us to be looking at engaging the success of any trial with something that's front of mind for us.
I think it's a great opportunity. I mean,
It's
at the end of the day, we've got to reserve infrastructure fund to cover the
We don't
costs.
have to implement it.
No, exactly.
It doesn't.
exactly.
We are, and by the way, we are the only rural council that has received this funding.
Well,
Oh, well, congratulations to your team. And can I just say, yeah, well done to the council team for actually securing that funding, to hear that we're the only rural council to have gotten it is, that's a coup in itself.
Now, given
It does help that the two people that make fun decisions are ex-employees.
Yeah. So not that we're going to preempt, that's not the way we're going to vote when this comes up. From the Martinborough ward, is there a councillor who would be willing to be involved in this consultation to report back to our citizen services?
Look, I think between both Pam and myself, we'd both be very interested in it. I would, due to a lot of work commitments, I could possibly.
does it need to be
If
restricted to one?
If Pam was interested, I'd.
No, it's not. I think from a perspective of efficiency, it probably is best to have.
But if there was something that Pam couldn't go to, I could, do you know what I mean? I think we could work it between the two of us.
So Pam assisted by.
Yes.
Yes.
Would you be happy?
Yeah.
Would you be happy with that? Yeah, Yeah.
Is that all right with you?
absolutely, absolutely. 'Cause
Very good.
Okay, so we've got two resolutions. The first one, do we have a mover to note, it's assuming we've finished discussing this?
Yeah.
Oh, before we do, can we, Ewan, do you want to say about that date?
Oh, sorry, yeah, I should say at the top of page 33, the date for the Assets and Services Committee report is dated the 12th of June, should be the 17th of June. My apologies, so the report was drafted on the 12th, but the meeting itself was on the 17th.
I don't think that needs to change the resolution.
No.
Yep. So do we have a mover to note the agreement of Waka Kahahi PZTA to provide $179,055 to commence an Innovating Streets for People project to Marsborough, and that the 10% South Harbour District Council contribution, i.e. $19,985, will be funded from the infrastructure reserve under the CEO delegation. Moved by Councillor Gibson in advance, seconded by Councillor Hay. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Now, Jeppe, you can get ahead of the process. Process is important. Process is important.
We shall remove the clock. Right, so with regards to appointing a councillor, do we have a mover to appoint Councillor Colenso and a alternate of Councillor Maynard to participate in the project governance team and report back to Assets and Services Committee?
I'll move.
Councillor Fox, seconded Councillor Plymmer. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Those against, the motion is carried. Right. Moving on to item C2, the Moira and Longwood Water Race Review. Do we have a mover to receive the report? Thank you, Councillor Colenso. Seconded, Councillor Maynard. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against? The motion is carried. Mr. Sturt, would you like to comment on the decision you are asking Council today?
Let's just ask Bill to join as well.
Bill?
So Bill is heavily working on the water race, I guess, project for us, and has been kind enough to continue to work on the project for a few months. Some background, and Bill can chip in. We undertook to do a survey of water race users to update our understanding of the use and the value of water races. As outlined in the report, they have been operating for some significant time, and potential use or value of water races may have changed since then. We are keen to understand the use and purpose of those water races, so that we can formulate a strategy as part of the LTP process. We had originally intended for Council and Welland Water Resources to be able to conduct the user survey. Unfortunately, with resource constraints, that's no longer possible. So we are looking to use some of the money from the water racing budgets to conduct that survey and use an external resource to do that for us.
So just on the finance side of it, we're proposing that the funding for the external review will come where it's required. That is, will come from water waste accounts. The possibility that we may take some of the reserve account, some of the money that's in reserve for one of the water race systems. So, and we expect this review will probably roll over 2 financial years. So it's something that's going to be done in discrete bits with some external assistance as required. So, and all folding back into the LTP processes next year. So that's generally, sorry.
It'll be this year. We need to, that'll be processed this year, so we just need to.
Sure. I don't rule out that there may be some further reviewing of this once we got some clarity around the new resource consent for the Longwood system, and that's in process at the moment. And the outcome is, well, it's not well understood. Well, we can't anticipate what the outcome will be.
So you do the project.
And as we develop the survey itself, we'll be reporting back to the water race subcommittee and then to access the service as well, as we develop and refine the survey and start to get some results through. So that's the report.
Okay, great.
I've got a couple of questions by the council. Have we identified that how are we going to do the survey? Is this an independent survey coming in to do this, or are we going to try and do it ourselves via a survey monkey?
So we're looking to engage Genevieve Drake, who has done multiple surveys on behalf of Wellington Water over the other side of the hill. So she knows the water industry and she knows the area well as well. Actually, a very capable person. We're looking to engage her to that.
Councillors, what we've got here, Genevieve, she helped us with the coronation bits around the occasional and the manganese stuff. So she's very competent. Yeah.
So, to my knowledge, the funding of anything to do with water races is done through the water race rate. Is there an issue with using a surplus within the water race for the benefit of the Longwood scheme?
Potentially it will be, but my thinking around that was that there may be some way of, if you like, paying whatever we expend back into that reserve account internally. I haven't discussed that with our finance people in any detail, but yes, in answer to the question, there could be some discussion around that point.
Or are we able to rate for an expense that's been incurred, an increase in the rate for the coming year. Right? I mean, this is an issue because what you're doing is you're asking the council to approve, but really it's ratepayer targeted rate funds that we're approving.
Sorry, can I just, we can't increase the water rate this financial year because obviously it's already been set. However, what we could do is we could increase the water races rate next year to encompass any overspends from this.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I thought of that point too, but I think, you know, the benefits that will come out of this are going to serve both water race systems.
I couldn't agree more. I just want to make sure that we're ticking all the right boxes.
Oh, absolutely.
Push back from individual ratepayers.
Has people aware that Longwood pays 4 times as much as Morrow already?
Yeah.
What is this? It's quite a council.
So the reason
It's a long
it's a smaller rate than this number of ratepayers. And also,
They pay the same commission, but it's the same sense.
I think for clarity and transparency, it's interesting to note that the Moroa, which is the small one, sorry, I got confused,
Longwood.
Moroa is the Moroa is the big one. So Longwood is in a negative reserve, is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. So,
The other one is last council meeting, we approved that the proportion of council stormwater within water race is a responsibility for council as opposed to the ratepayer. So will part of this be borne by council on the survey?
Could it be, did you say?
Will it? Because if we are responsible for X percentage of that, are we responsible for X percentage of the survey costs?
I mean, we could look at that. It's quite a short distance, effectively being the section under the state highway.
I mean, sorry, the main purpose here is to actually establish what the use and the value for the purpose predominantly of stock. That's the key piece of information we need to know. And then the related values. So there will be environmental, intrinsic, community value. And so what we're trying to find out here is not so what we're trying to find out is what people value and what the current use is, and we don't know. So we need to find out that information because it's critical.
So Councillor Fox, do you have a question?
No, it was really just to reiterate what Harry was saying. That's what we need to find out with our rural water race users. The question of the urban stormwater use of the race is a separate question, but an equally valid question. But I think there's a different place for that to be asked.
Oh yeah, I was just really trying to flesh out the funding of it and making sure that we had discussed it fully. Any official response were addressed.
But around the funding, I guess, you know, Moroa has the longer water race and a lot more users. And when you roll it all back, you may end up charging them more for the survey because of the number of people there as opposed to Longwood. Yeah. I mean, so I'm not opposed to actually, on a per head population or per user.
Yeah, could I just ask a question? The survey results you'll get will be predicated largely on the understanding of the freshwater environmental regulations that are coming in terms of access to water by stock. Are we making sure that the users are fully aware of the implications of that national policy statement before we do the survey? So are we going to do a bit of?
Well, I think that'll be made clear during the survey, if not before, that there are it's a changing regulatory landscape. And as far as waters are concerned, generally speaking, and in particular as water races and stock environmental considerations. Yes.
Because some farmers may well face a significant cost to fence.
Oh, absolutely.
And are they fully aware of that? Because if they're not fully aware of those costs they might be facing, then the information we get from the farmers may well be skewed because they're not understanding what the, so perhaps we need to do this in 2 stages to make sure that they're fully
Well, the
aware.
bylaws actually, the existing bylaws are reasonably clear on that. And as far as stock's concerned, it's just a matter of, well, it's not just a matter, that would need to be highlighted along with the landscape we're working with it.
It has been discussed at the water race committee around actually how we pre-brief, especially around the changing regulatory environment as you outlined, so that's certainly part of consideration.
So was it a 5 metre fencing requirement or something coming in, isn't it?
Most farmers are totally.
I'm well aware of it.
I'm sure they are.
Well aware of it.
I think that's the advantage of using a professional research company, that they can incorporate that questions that they have.
I mean, that's exactly what you do, is you would ask that in the survey, we can know, yeah, are you aware and what are you planning?
So that's why I want professionals to be there.
Well, look, I think, I agree. I think farmers are fully aware, but there's a lot of lifestylers now who are coming, who may well not be aware of the implication for them as well. And of course, they're now users, whether they like it or not. So,
What's the time frame? How long when do you think you'll get this completed?
So
What's the aim?
at the present time, we're pulling a draft together of what survey questions and the format might look like. Based on current time frames and some consultation that we'll need to undertake with the Water Race Committee. I would think that we'd be pushing to get the survey out before Christmas, to be honest. We don't want to be putting it out right on Christmas because people have lines on other things. So realistically, I don't think we'll have anything to look at by way of a response or a collated response until early in the new year. Yep.
Through you, Worship, Bill and Ewan, if it doesn't come through till New Year, what's our date for handing over the water races to Wellington Water, and is that going to affect that date?
So that's already happened. So the
Done that.
management over the 1st of October.
All right, okay.
Any other questions, councillors? Move on then to, do we have a mover to approve funding to be made available
Has to be done.
2021 and 2022?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, councillor Fox.
No, I was just.
Yeah. I'm not even sure second.
Councillors, could you wait for me to read? So now it's going to start again. Do we have a mover to approve funding to be made available for the 2020, 2021 and 2022-2023 financial years, estimated at a rough number of costs of $50,000 to initiate a complete water race review? This funding is to be sourced from the water accounts. Do we have a mover? All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. All those against, motion.
far too much energy going on.
And then, do we have a mover to approve the water race review program as implementation? Councillor West, seconded Councillor Maynard. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, the motion is carried. Thank you. Right, now moving on to C3. I'll speak to this one. So we're now considering the report C3, minor changes to the terms of reference for the Wairarapa Combined District and Joint Community. So do we have a mover to receive the report? Thank you, Councillor Timpson, seconded Councillor Maynard. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, the motion is carried. And I think, Mr. Wilson, you would like to speak to this.
So these are literally minor changes. The changes relate to the appointment, I apologise, in the finding of the problem, it says the appointment of a iwi representative. It's actually to appoint 2 iwi representatives, one from each of the 2 iwi in the Wairarapa, and the appointment of a commissioner and the membership of the quorum quorum. So if you look at the amendments, it literally is to appoint 2 iwi representative from Rangatani Kahanimunu to the joint committee, and simply a transposition to make sure there's an appropriately qualified commissioner as independent chair. And the other amendment is to the quorum, which is rather than 4, it is now 5 members and includes 1 member of each territorial authority, but does not include the mayors unless appointed as one of the 2 council appointed members, but includes the ability to provide an alternate. So those are the amendments that are proposed. If you have any questions, please ask.
Clear as mud.
Clear is clear.
This doesn't.
No, it is already been discussed in previous meetings.
Any other further discussion, councillors? Right, do we have a mover to approve the amended Wairarapa Combined District Plan Joint Committee terms of reference? Councillor Hay, seconded Councillor Fox. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried.
Just a little bit, Alex, the combined district plan first meeting is on the 12th of November in Cardiff for anyone. Just to give you a heads up, we are moving ahead with it.
Woo.
Excellent.
And then the fun.
Very exciting.
Right. So item C4, which is the appointment of the district licensing committee chair or commissioner.
Your worship, I'd just like to declare a conflict of interest, having my duty manager's licence as well as working in the hospitality area. I'll have to.
And I also have the same conflict. I'm not a duty manager yet, but I will be applying for it, and I will not vote.
I've got a problem with the whole licence system racetrack.
And I've got a duty manager's licensing work for a provider of.
Do we have anyone left? And I'm not usually on the fly.
Those fine citizens.
Well, I'll carry on, but thank you very much, councillors, for those declarations. So, do we have a mover to receive the report as receive the report? Thank you, Councillor Jepson. Seconded, Councillor Fox. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 All
Do
those
we have a
against?
quorum left with all those?
We do.
As long as you're here, it's fine.
Yeah. All those in- so the motion is carried. So although the district licensing committee is a committee of council, is not the standard at the end of the triennium and operates somewhat independently. I think the term is 5 years. Mr. Mayor, can you brief us on the function of this committee and walk us through the options?
Oh, Rick, I couldn't see you sitting behind me.
It's an awesome shirt. All the councillors should be buying it.
You may love the synergy between liquor licensing and meat.
Right, so assuming everyone's read the report, just to give you a bit of background as to what a district licensing committee does, is they hear the applications through premises, i.e. Tavern, winery, grocery store, etc. They also have the manager's certificates as well, and then the third is the clubs, and then finally the special licenses. So they are events that are unique or special, and they hear that. So the district licensing committee is made up of 3 members, and the chair or commissioner, depending on which way you go, is the one that usually writes the decision. Now, most of those decisions are made on the papers. We have a unique situation here due to the competency level that you luckily have in terms of the alcohol inspectors, and that most of the contentious issues are worked out pretty easily and quite quickly before they need to go to hearings. So the chair or commissioner receives the report from the agencies, which takes up the alcohol inspector, the police, and the medical officer of health. Considers that against the local alcohol policy, the legislation of the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act, and makes a determination of whether to accept, refuse, or vary. And that then is what the DLC's decision is. There's an appeal process for the applicant or any of the agencies if they disagree with the DLC, and that goes to the Alcohol Regulatory Licensing Authority, otherwise known as ALA, which acts as a district court. So it's headed by a judge, and applications are made of those, and they sit in Wellington. The criteria in terms of selecting, so the options put forward is we have a resignation by the current chair, who, in my humble opinion, has serviced this region very, very well, and you've been very, very lucky. And so it's with regret to receive that, but understand the circumstances, and this is where we are. So the three options that are put forward on the report is one, that you select an existing member from the list as a chair. Second, you put forward a councillor in terms of to appoint to the list and then can make them as a chair. Or third is to instruct the chief executive to seek expressions of interest for commissioner. There's pros and cons on both those options that are put forward. Historically, the scenario where the background to this act is that the liquor licensing, they wanted the regions to be able to have or maintain the focus of their region, and therefore that's where a lot of the chairs through councils come in. In recent times, the amount of process has gone from the local informal sort of discussion where a lot of it was seen as rubber stamping to a very legalised type scenario. So the forums and hearings, lawyers are involved, there's cross-examination, so there's all that legalese that comes in. So the position as a quasi-judicial function has with that all the determinants of making sure that you're applying to the judicial principles such as natural justice, the way you hear it, to make sure the rationale is provided within your judgments as well. The biggest thing I think in recent times is the amount of time that these have taken. So historically you could argue that many people perceived it as a bit of a rubber stamp exercise in which people just got their liquor licensing. The whole gambit of the recent 2012 Act was to commonly referred as harder to get, easier to lose. And it's about minimising the harm that's caused by the consumption of alcohol in an appropriate way. And in essence, to protect the communities and regions that we live in. So that is something that many people probably overlook, is the amount of time and effort that goes into this that's expected from the chair. And over the two previous councils, I've seen both a commissioner and both a chair, and both have recognised the level has increased in terms of the expertise and the criteria of the individual, but also the amount of time and effort that goes into these and the rationale of the decisions. I think that covers what I've put forward outside of the report, and I'm happy to answer any questions that are put from the floor.
Thank you very much, Rick. Before we do move on, I'd actually like to pick up what Rick said and thank Julie Riddell for her very competent service. And I think we'll write a letter to her and thank her for the time that she spent over the last 8 years. Most definitely, as our current chair. So, councillors, do you have any discussion regarding that, or?
I think Rick has explained it very well. You know, things have changed in there, and I guess LSC might appreciate what goes into these now. You're doing this commissioner's course, and it is a full-time job, and you've got to have your finger on the pulse. So I'm sort of leaning towards the chief executive to pursue expressions of interest on this. I think it's gone from the realms of being a councillor to someone who's got a lot more knowledge on how to, but, you know, all the processes through this are pretty complex, I guess.
I also think if you look at the number of councillors who had to remove themselves because of conflicts, I mean, from a personal, from a safety perspective.
Absolutely.
A risk perspective.
Through you, Mr Chair, the Alcohol Licensing Act 2012 has become a lot more complicated.
Oh, yeah.
And the hearing process is quite formal. And if we're seeing something of what's happening up the country creep down into our region, there is a lot of work.
I just hate to see a council have the pressure of
I think you're going to be busy enough anyway.
Yeah.
Can I say something, even though I've got a conflict of interest? Can I say that this is something that I am very interested in, and so I spoke both to Rick and to Julie as to what was involved, and I understand that I can't do that at this time. But Julie was really specific in the amount of work that is involved and the fact that you have to do it in a very timely manner. It's not something you have to look at every day. You cannot leave it because it impacts the rest of the process of those applications going through. So just being aware that, you know, it's a daily thing that you have to do, and it does mount up to about 20, even more than 20, depending whether you're doing hearings or not, hours. Yeah.
And I think that because of Julie's experience, she's able to be proficient in terms of how it is. And thank you for bringing that. As something I should have mentioned is it does have a flow-on effect, and one of the proactive stances we've done with this council is to try and reduce the time lag from the applicants so that our operators are getting their license, assuming they're a suitable person, to be able to get up and running. The longer we delay that has an adverse effect. So we, as I say, we've been very lucky in the way that Commissioner Riddell has turned those around very quickly, and that's something that from an officer's point of view that is emphasised from us would be something that we need to uphold.
And I can assume that if we move with option 4, it doesn't preclude anyone that's already on the list from placing an expression of interest to be the chair.
Correct.
So to my mind, I don't know if everyone agrees that option 4 seems to be the logical way forward, given what we've discussed.
I'll move that direction. I'll get ahead of the game.
Anyone, any comments to the negative to that?
I think that seems the best way forward.
Right, so we will then move that we instruct the chief executive to pursue an expressions of interest process to appoint a commissioner to the South Wairoa District Licensing Committee. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Nixon. Second, Councillor Fox. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. The motion is carried. We do you want to pause for 10 minutes, or would you like to carry on?
No, it's not doing it. Because I can remove it.
Trotting along quite nicely.
But you can stay on.
I can see that.
We'll have a break for 10 minutes. Have a cup of coffee, and we'll be back here at 11:05.
Unfortunately, it's green shop in Wellington down by it's called downstairs. Wellesley.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. It's done by Slum. Yeah.
Oh,
It was done by Slum.
Scottish Time, obviously.
it was Russell.
No, it was downstairs.
Or the other one.
Right. Are we missing anyone?
No.
Oh, cool.
Thank you. Councillor Fox, are you there?
You'll be hobbling around the house.
You get a nice hot Right, we will start. I'm sure Rebecca's there, but we'll mention when she comes back online. So reconvening the meeting, we are D4, action items. We're now considering this report. Do we have a mover to receive the report? Councillor Colenso, seconded. Councillor Plymouth, thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. All those against, the motion is carried. Councillors, are there any questions you would like to ask of officers? Sure you. Councillor Westford.
With regards to action item 449, can I just get clarification of what this particular action was for? Was that the lighting? Am I talking about the right one?
Yeah. Curfew on.
The curfew on the lighting. I was dead set against that, but I was surprised to see that was in there. Were we considering putting a curfew on the lighting within the South Wairarapa district?
Oh, so there was, we talked to Debbie who prepared the report, and the question was, should we include that during the sort of submissions and consultation, people just have an opportunity to sort of screen it out or have a conversation about that?
Because we're not actually going to be considering the lighting restriction at this stage for the dark skies, are we? Because
So in the original plan was a curfew on public lighting
Yeah.
at 10:30.
Yeah.
And we passed that we wanted an amendment so that sporting or cultural or whatever.
Yeah, so that's what that,
Is that what
so that's what that's about. Yeah.
That's the process.
Is all we're doing.
Councillors, any other comments regarding the action items report?
Good to see quite a few going
Yeah.
off.
Yes, it's looking very, very small now, which is great.
I've just got a quick question on item 330 regarding the land on 110 East Street. So just to clarify, you think that should be very nearing completion now? Or waiting on lawyers?
No, it's signed out.
Great. And is there, moving forward, going to be a process, I think maybe this is a Ewan question, to look at all of the mapping of where these problems arise? Great.
Cool. Any further questions there?
No.
Marcus, we'll now move on to item E1, which is the Mayor's report. Do we have a mover to receive the Mayor's report? Councillor West, seconded Councillor Plymouth. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, motion is carried. Right. So any questions from the report? You will notice there that we have got, we do want to discuss an appointment to the a South Wairarapa representative to the Destination Wairarapa Board, and to bring that to the committee for suggestions that we might ask someone, or whether there are any particular. There are two people that I have spoken to. I don't know whether anyone else has spoken to any. But we'll, sorry, are there any other questions apart from that from my mayoral report?
Would you like me to do a bit of an expansion on the Whānau Trust? And the Mayoral Task
So
Force
meeting
for Jobs?
number 2, which is the Whānau Trust Mayoral Task Force for Jobs, and I'll let Alice, if you'd like to speak to that.
Okay, so we've just put in our first report to work and income, and we've had 7 outcomes already of people in employment, which is really good at this stage, and we've established a governance group over the Mayoral Task Force for Jobs thing, which includes the Mayor and myself, Principal of Kuranui College, a member from Youth Justice, and Wellington Free Ambulance, who's a younger person who's actually found a job, so we've got the youth side coming in there, and then Alan Maxwell from Whānau Trust as the want a better term, chief executive of the organisation. And we've had 2 meetings on that, and that's working really well. That's the higher level, just keeping us on track and overseeing where we're heading. We've had some very good outcomes already for driver licensing training, which is going ahead, and we're using an external provider for that already, and we've had 7 complete the course, I think it is at this stage, to get their restricted licences, which is opening them up now available for jobs. We are looking at expanding that into Kuranui, and Kuranui colleges getting that set up to expand that in the new year, when they can get some more tutors and more driver instructors on board. In terms of work, there is huge amounts of demand for work, and so part of what we're concentrating on now is actually making sure that we get the young who are not in educational training work ready. So that involves licensing, site safes, and all these initial things that need to be done before a person can go into work, and they seem to be a barrier to be taken on. So if we can get those things done in advance, then it's one less obstacle for them. We've also got, the Whānau Trust has also got a wraparound service around them as they get work. So when they start work, they get, the young people get a mentoring program from the Whānau Trust, so that they're visited regularly, making sure that the engagement between the employer and the employee is working well. So we're really happy with the way this is working well at the moment. We are using external providers as and when required. So if we need something specific, we might go to Yeti or to Reap or to any other agency. So it's not all internally controlled. We're using the Whānau Trust as our provider, and they are going out and seeking expertise where we need it. But it's working pretty well.
Yeah. So, I mean, the intention is to have 50 outcomes over a 12-month period. So it's not going to solve the unemployment problems in South Wairarapa, but it's certainly a very targeted way of helping. 2 other initiatives, every time it potentially is a full-time job for a counsellor, really, if we wanted to get into this space. But two opportunities that have popped up. One is the work going around Awaroa and Moana, and I have got a meeting next week with DOC and Greater Wellington to look at their planting plan and whether we can implement that planting plan use as a training for youth, and they're very keen on that. The other one, and I spoke to yesterday, someone who was more than happy to provide a 3-day training on block plan, you know, so that they just have a level of skills that when they do get a job, they have a level of confidence or transferable skills that maybe make them employable. So I think by the next report, we should have that number up to about 21. And so I think we will exceed our targets over the 12-month period.
One of the really great outcomes we've had is one of the people that we got into work in the last tranche, that down and dirty get people into work, has turned out to be a person that, with the training he's done with the DOC course now for planting, he's going to be possibly the foreman who's going to take on a whole lot of young people.
He's going to be the teacher.
He's going to be the teacher. So it's been a really amazing sort of little find, which has been great. So we're just finding little things like that are popping up, which actually means that. And the Whānau Trust is opening an office in the library in Featherston, so there will be the information centre will be on the ground there, which actually gives them a huge advantage for contacting the younger people who need this.
So there is a space made available through the moving of the food bank in Featherston within that information centre, and it's always good to have an old building used. So we're really happy with that. Additionally, there will be an employer liaison role where we talk with employers and look at their needs and then start matching up. And Harry, that may be coming in within the council as a part role, 25 FTE on our community liaison role. That would be funded, community development, and that would be funded through the Mayoral Task Force Jobs funding.
So there's no task force jobs will see that going on for quite some time.
It's a 1-year funding package, but with the intention to renew. Yeah. And I also think that if we're remarkably successful, the funding could be extended. I think NSD would be more than happy to look at a successful program in at large. Yeah.
I was going to just add in there, I think this is a terrific initiative. If the young people don't, like when you go for an interview, you need to be smartly dressed and things like that, but Dress for Success, which is in Masterton, are more than willing to provide suitable clothing if people are not in a position to fund those, because quite often they're looking for a job to be able to fund themselves. So I can give you the contacts for that, and they're men and women, they are just absolutely fabulous with, and they have an amazing range of clothing.
Very, very good thought. As part of it, we are looking at funding PPE or any appropriate work gear. Through, we have the ability to do that.
That's
certainly that's a very good point.
Something for a pair of trousers.
So we are actually trying to keep this as far as having a capability within the council. We are trying not to actually add to the workload there. And actually in this budget forum, I'd like to congratulate Alistair for picking this up. And it's taking quite a few hours a week of his time. But yeah, going it well.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and Alistair. So the replacement for Alan Maxwell, is Alan leaving?
Sorry, that's what I was just wanting to actually acknowledge all the work that Alan's been doing. Alan's moving, the family are moving to Tauranga, I believe. So Tauranga, yeah. So but he had sent something out to certain groups just advising that. And so he, I just saw that replacement for Alan Maxwell from February, so I assume that.
So they're interviewing and about appointing, and there'll be 2 people because of the extra funding Matthew Fund Our Trust. Through this, they have increased capability.
Would they be looking at someone similar with his role with the Anglican Church as well, because his youth liaison work that he's been doing?
We are unsure. All we're worried about is our contract with
but with his contacts that he has with the youth and things like that, I think that position.
So Alan said to us yesterday, day before, that the 2 applicants to replace him, either one could do the job very well. So he's very confident that we'll be well served going forward, which is great. And I agree with you entirely. The success of this program to date has been entirely Alan's efforts.
Not just Alan, but he definitely has been very much a motivator.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I just think absolutely kudos to Alan Maxwell. Featherston had a huge problem with youth to the point where the youth almost took over the township. And if it was not for Alan and the Anglican Church and then stepping in, and they not only just helped Featherston out, they then went further afield and helped the district out.
I think before Alan leaves, we may also do something.
Yes, absolutely.
This seems that this allows for a good handover period from Alan.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think we should mention is that Kurunui are incredibly supportive of this program, and it shows by having Simon on the governance thing. And whilst we have a lot of young people who have left school, we're also working closely with Kurunui to make sure that they don't, as the kids leave school, they're not falling off the thing. So we're picking them up before they actually leave. And we've got, what did he say, 5 that may well be looking at apprenticeships, things that we're going to try and get ready.
That's another thing we are doing, is meeting with the builders to talk about what their pre-training requirements to make an apprentice more employable or less of a burden. And we'll see what we can do with regards to getting tickets prior to going into an apprenticeship. So there's lots of little tweaks.
It's exciting. It's really exciting.
Got a quick question. I think it's great what you've done. It's a fabulous project. Just thinking about driving licences. So how many are restricted because they don't have a full licence?
It's been identified as the biggest stumbling block to continuous employment. So that is truly our focus, is number 1, do you have a driver's licence, and what help do you need to get that? So,
and it is also the first point of contact that the young people have with police, and they and they end up into the youth justice facility because they're driving without a licence. So that's the start of the spiral down, basically, is licensing. And so we're working closely with Kuranui. Yeti provides service perhaps for Carterton and a bit further north, and we're going to really ramp it up in South Wairarapa.
So if you want any more information on this full discussion, by all means, head up to Alistair or myself, and we'll give you a full briefing on what's going on, and you might want to help in that area.
Well done anyway, guys.
Great job, fantastic initiative.
So moving now on to the board representative, South Wairarapa representative to the Destination Wairarapa board. Do we have any suggestions with regards to this? I have two suggestions that I've spoken to that expressed an interest. One is Alan Hogg, who's currently chair of the Market Business Association, and the other one is the outgoing chair of the Wellington Business Association.
He lives in Greytown.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a father. Yeah.
It's not recorded.
I think his name's in my report.
What was his name again?
1 minute.
Alistair.
Malcolm?
No.
Bill? No, Paul. No.
Richard.
Frank?
David.
I presume we're talking about.
Not Brian. Scott.
Actually,
It was quite controversial.
John Milford. Who has resigned from his position and has a place in Greytown. And with many extensive contacts as well. So there's two options. Let's throw it out to anyone else that you've thought of, but it is an important position given what's going on potentially in the future of the EDA.
So,
I haven't spoken to him, but if you were to approach him, perhaps Nathan Maynard might be an option there as well from his work in, previously in Rotorua, Christchurch, and now at Pepa's Parihua. So,
yeah, my initial thoughts were, and you may disagree with me, but someone without an involvement within council to report back to council.
and that Māori Standing Committee.
With the Māori Standing Committee. But I may be wrong. I see that as a appeal.
You don't want to lead that.
You don't?
No, but also I think
Maybe
it's pretty good. I would have thought he'd be rather busy anyway.
He is. I haven't asked
I
him.
quite like the idea of the outgoing chair of
John Milford.
just simply because he might have a different lens on South Wairarapa or Wairarapa as a whole. Coming out of Wellington, he might just have a view on things.
I think it'd be much more strategic rather than an actual hospital operator too. It's worth having somebody at that level is probably the big deal.
So with regards to the Destination Wairarapa board, should we not be putting this out for nomination?
We could if you wanted to, however, it's a council decision.
So definitely a council decision?
Yeah.
When does it have, do we have to make the appointment?
They would have preferred the appointment a couple of months ago.
Oh, okay.
So I think it is, and this appointment can be changed.
What's the
Possibly,
term
John.
for the appointment? Is it?
I don't think there is a term, is there? It's
Well,
a
generally,
replace.
it's the end of the triennial, the start of the next term.
So generally it is, but it is a bow out, put in, it's a representative to report back to us. And I would like to be tightening up the reporting back. That we, that will receive from the likes of some of these appointments. So.
And if both of those potential candidates indicated that they were happy to do it.
Oh, they were? Okay.
Don't forget it is an unpaid.
Can you advise why, if we already have someone Rosie Rogers and Sharon Garrett White, neither of those two from the South Wairarapa have reported at all?
They're not appointees by the councils.
Oh, I see, okay.
They're appointees through different organisations.
Right, gotcha, okay,
Membership.
right.
Could we perhaps suggest that you talk to the 3 people that have been suggested and that you talk to them, work out which one is
So you
available and delegate. Yeah.
Good idea.
And that you make that.
So then I'm going to propose a motion that you delegate to the mayor to discuss and appoint either of the 3 mentioned people as the South Wairopa District Council representative to the Destination Road. Moved.
I'll move.
Councillor Plymouth, seconded Councillor Palenzo. All those in favour, please say
Aye.
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 Against.
Well done, Pam.
The motion is carried. Thank you, guys. Moving on to E1, the members' reports. Councillor West, you've submitted a report.
I did.
Is there anything you would like to add?
No. I just thought it was timely that I actually submit a report on the meetings that I've been attending. So I've been attending 2 so far.
No, this is fantastic, and I do encourage other councillors to just pop these in, just so everyone's aware. Particularly of interest is the Hood Aerodrome Strategic Advisory Group, which is a point of contention already.
We went for a virtual flight at the airport. It's not just about getting airplanes, passenger service. It's in no way or form as it was ever just that. It's a strategic point should, for the event of a disaster. If we were cut off from Wellington, that could be a point of receiving goods. But it's also to encourage industry as well. So there is employment opportunities and an opportunity to develop. So yes, I think it got off to a bit of a bad bump by misrepresentation in the first instance. Saying, oh, it's just saying we can get passenger service, but that's by a small but
lack of communication.
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, so then do we have a mover to receive the members' report? Second, Councillor Cairns. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
As against, the motion is carried. Thank you, Brenda. Just as a point while we're talking about members' reports, but there is the rural and provincial meeting coming up in November. If any of the councillors would like to attend with myself and Harry, please let me know.
Where was it held?
I'll send an email out to everyone.
Oh, okay.
Just also, given that on the Zone 4 meeting, so Malcolm Alexander, you know, was the past chief executive of New Zealand. So the combined council meeting next week, I've asked Malcolm to be the key speaker.
Oh, great.
And secondly,
It's really good.
Bree Anderson. So the idea is that Malcolm can really talk about what he was is the future of Labour government. You know, what's going on here. So it's really a conversation around, from his experience, about if there's a change in government or if this government continues, what does he think that's going to mean? And Ree, who you'll be familiar with for our spatial planning, but I've asked you to speak around the Auckland experience, because the only experience in New Zealand of actually bringing councils together in a formal sense is Auckland. And one of the key discussions there was in Auckland was, okay, you supersise the city, how do you keep pace? How do you keep that, that connection with the various parts, not just the whole? And so she'll be speaking on that. So it's a real start to stimulating some thinking amongst the councils about what might be coming at us and how we're all prepared as local government to respond to some of these initiatives. So I just thought you might be very interested to know.
Sounds good.
Because Malcolm is fascinating.
Yeah, he's really
he's
good.
not a place where he can actually say what he thinks.
It may be a loaded speaker.
Yeah.
Although he spoke really well.
Oh, yes.
No, he's great speaking.
It's good to get that one.
A great analytical brain too, you know, he was a good thinker, good strategy, good strategist, good thinker.
Great. So now we'll move on then to public, motion to go to public excluded. The full motion and reason is presented in the agenda papers. Can I have a councillor move that we enter public excluded? Councillor A, seconded Councillor Fox. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against? Carried. Thank you very much, people, if you could be excluded.
Yes.
And start.